You don't belong in first class.
Seat 2A is mine.
Not for much longer. Security will drag you out.
You're destroying your careers.
Then leave this plane. Stop this immediately!
I'm chairman of Liberty Air Holdings.
Dear God, what have we done?
Captain Pierce, we need you in first class now. Rachel Monroe's voice cracked over the cabin interphone, sharp enough to make every head turn. In seat 2A, Ethan Brooks did not move. He sat by the window with his hands folded over a leather briefcase, his dark suit smooth, his breathing steady, his face unreadable. Around him, the first-class cabin had gone quiet, in that strange way people go quiet when they want to watch trouble, but not admit they are watching. Rachel stood in the aisle, one hand gripping her tablet, the other pressed against the back of seat 1C. Her smile was gone now. So was the polished calm she had worn during boarding. "Sir," she said, lowering her voice, but not enough. "I am asking you one last time. Show me your real ticket." Ethan looked up slowly. "I already showed you my boarding pass." Rachel's eyes flicked toward the phone screens rising around them. A woman across the aisle had started recording. A retired couple in the second row leaned closer. Somewhere behind them, a man whispered, "What's going on?" Rachel heard it. She felt the cabin shifting, and instead of stepping back, she doubled down. "That pass doesn't look right," she said, "and this cabin is reserved for premium passengers." The words landed hard. Ethan held her gaze, not angry, not loud, just still. "I paid for this seat." Rachel gave a short breath through her nose, almost a laugh, but colder. "People say that all the time." A small silence followed. Ethan's phone buzzed once on the tray table. He glanced down. The screen lit for half a second. A message from someone named Legal Affairs. "Everything is ready. Say the word." He turned the phone face down. Rachel noticed. Her jaw tightened. "Who are you texting?" she asked. Ethan looked back at her. "Someone who listens before making assumptions." The woman recording across the aisle raised her phone higher. Rachel's cheeks flushed. For 12 years, she had worked premium cabins. She knew the regulars. She knew the bankers, the retirees with lake homes, the corporate lawyers who ordered sparkling water before takeoff. She trusted her instincts, and her instincts told her this man did not fit the picture in her head. That was the danger. Not hatred with a shouting face. Something quieter. A judgment made in a blink. A life reduced to a look. At the front of the aircraft, the cockpit door opened. Captain Alan Pierce stepped out, tall, silver-haired, and carrying the tired authority of a man who believed every problem could be solved by taking control. Rachel turned toward him with visible relief. "Captain, this passenger is refusing to cooperate. He won't provide proper identification, and I believe he may be in the wrong cabin." Ethan said nothing. Captain Pierce studied him. The tailored suit, the calm hands, the expensive watch half hidden beneath one cuff. Nothing about Ethan looked threatening, but Rachel's voice shook. The passengers were staring. Departure time was closing in, and pressure has a way of making weak judgment feel like leadership. "Sir," the captain said, stepping into the aisle, "I'm Captain Pierce. I need to understand why my crew is concerned." Ethan lifted his boarding pass without a word. The captain took it and read it carefully. "Liberty Air Flight 2847. Seat 2A, first class. Ethan Brooks." Everything matched. For a moment, Captain Pierce's expression changed, just slightly. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. Rachel saw it and leaned in. "Captain," she whispered, though half the cabin could hear her, "look at him. Really look at him. Does he seem like he belongs here?" The cabin froze. A phone camera clicked. Someone whispered, "Did she just say that?" Ethan finally stood, not fast, not aggressive, slowly. The air seemed to tighten around him. He was taller than Rachel expected, older than she had first assumed. His eyes carried the weight of a man who had spent a lifetime entering rooms where people questioned his right to stand there. He adjusted his jacket once. Then he spoke. "My name is Ethan Brooks. I am sitting in the seat I paid for. I have followed every instruction. I have raised my voice to no one." He looked from Rachel to the captain. "So tell me clearly, what exactly have I done wrong?" No one answered. The engines hummed beneath the floor. Outside the window, baggage carts rolled past under the gray morning light. Inside the cabin, every passenger waited for the captain's next words. And Ethan Brooks, the man they thought they could quietly push aside, waited too. Captain Pierce looked down at the boarding pass again, as if the paper might change if he stared at it long enough. It did not. Seat 2A, first class. Paid ticket. The facts were clean. The room was not. Rachel stood beside him with her arms tight across her chest, breathing fast through her nose. She could feel the passengers watching her. She could feel the phones. Every raised screen made her more desperate to prove she had not been wrong. "Captain," she said, her voice lower now, "people fake documents every day. You know that." Ethan turned his head slightly. "Do they usually fake the airline app too?" A few passengers shifted. One man in a navy golf jacket looked down at his shoes. An older woman in pearls pursed her lips, then glanced at Ethan with something close to doubt. Captain Pierce held up one hand. "Everyone stay calm." But calm had already left the cabin. A young woman in row 3, Lily Carter, kept her phone steady in both hands. She was not trying to become part of the story. She had been flying to Arizona to visit her mother after surgery. But when she heard Rachel ask whether Ethan belonged, something inside her would not let her look away. Her live video had started with a small caption. "Something wrong in first class." Now people were joining by the hundreds. Comments flickered across her screen faster than she could read. "Show his ticket. This feels wrong. Why is he the only one being questioned?" Rachel saw Lily filming. "Mom, you need to stop recording crew procedures." Lily swallowed. She was 24, soft-spoken, not the type to challenge authority, but her thumb stayed where it was. "I'm not interfering," she said. "I'm sitting in my seat." Rachel's eyes flashed. "This is a private aircraft cabin." "No," Ethan said quietly. "It is a commercial flight." The correction was simple. It was also devastating. Captain Pierce felt the balance slipping. He had spent more than 3 decades believing that order mattered above all else. A late departure meant angry passengers. Angry passengers meant complaints. Complaints meant reports. He had learned to trust his crew and settle disputes fast. But fast was not the same as fair. Still, pride has a way of dressing itself as procedure. "Brooks," he said, "I'm going to ask for additional identification." Ethan nodded once. "You may." Rachel blinked, almost disappointed by his cooperation. Ethan reached slowly into the inside pocket of his jacket. 2 passengers tensed. Captain Pierce did too, though he hated himself for it the moment he noticed. Ethan saw it. He said nothing. That silence had weight. He pulled out a slim leather wallet and opened it with steady fingers. A Georgia driver's license. A Liberty Air loyalty card. A black credit card with a metal edge that caught the cabin light. Captain Pierce took the license, compared it to the boarding pass, then to Ethan's face. Everything matched. Rachel leaned over his shoulder. "That still doesn't explain how the seat was purchased," she said. Ethan looked at her. "With money." The cabin went still again. Not because it was funny. Because it was true. Rachel's face reddened. "You know what I mean." "No," Ethan said. "I would like you to say what you mean." There it was. The line in the floor. For the first time, Rachel had to step toward it, or step back. She stepped toward it. "I mean, this cabin has had problems before," she said. "People sneaking up here. People using fake upgrades. People acting like rules don't apply to them." Ethan's voice stayed low. "People like me." Rachel opened her mouth, closed it. Captain Pierce looked at her then. Really looked. He saw the tightness in her jaw, the fear behind her anger, the need to be right because being wrong would mean something uglier than a mistake. Behind him, a businessman in seat 1C checked his watch loudly. "Captain, I have a connection in Phoenix," he said. "Can we please deal with this and move on?" That gave Pierce the escape he wanted. Pressure from the cabin, pressure from the clock. Pressure from his own uniform. "Mr. Brooks," he said, returning the license. "I think the best solution is for you to step off the aircraft with me. We can verify everything at the gate and get you rebooked if necessary." Ethan did not take the license right away. His eyes lifted to the captain's. "Rebooked?" Pierce heard the word come back at him and knew how weak it sounded. "Yes," he said, "just until we sort this out." "It is already sorted out," Ethan said. You have my boarding pass. You have my identification. You have my payment record in your system. What you do not have is a reason, Rachel snapped. The reason is you are making everyone uncomfortable. Ethan finally took back his license. His hand was steady, but something in his face changed. Not anger, pain, old pain, the kind men learn to hide so well that others mistake it for coldness. My presence is not a disruption, he said. Your suspicion is. Lily's live stream crossed 10,000 viewers. A soft gasp moved through the cabin as people saw the number climb. Captain Pierce's radio crackled at his belt. Ground operations calling. He ignored it for one breath. Then another. Rachel pointed toward the front of the plane. Captain, call security. Pierce closed his eyes for half a second. When he opened them, he made the choice that would follow him for the rest of his life. Ground security, he said into the radio. We need assistance to the aircraft. First class. Passenger refusal. Ethan leaned back into seat 2A. He placed his wallet on the tray table. Then he looked out the window as the morning light slid across the wing. You should have asked better questions, he said. Captain Pierce heard him. So did Rachel. So did every phone in the cabin. The radio answered with a burst of static, then a calm voice from the terminal. Copy that, Captain Pierce. Security is on the way. Those words changed the air. People sat straighter. Phones rose higher. A child in coach began crying, sensing the tension before understanding it. Somewhere near the rear galley, a bin slammed shut. The sound cracked through the cabin like a warning shot. Rachel stepped back, but only a little. Her face had the hard shine of someone afraid and unwilling to show it. She told herself she was protecting the flight, protecting the passengers, protecting the rules. But deep inside, where honest thoughts live, another truth pressed against her ribs. She had not been afraid of Ethan's behavior. She had been afraid of being wrong about him. Captain Pierce moved closer to Ethan's seat, keeping his voice low. Mr. Brooks, when security arrives, I need you to cooperate. Ethan turned from the window. I have cooperated with every reasonable request. This can still end quietly. Ethan looked at the raised phones. Lily's, the woman in pearls, the businessman pretending to check email while recording from his lap. Quietly ended the moment your crew questioned my right to sit here in front of strangers. Pierce tightened his jaw. He did not like that answer because it was too clean, too measured. A disruptive passenger could be dismissed. A calm one forced people to think. Lily Carter's hand trembled around her phone. She had never seen anything like this in person. Not this close. Not with the polished carpet beneath her feet and the first-class lamps glowing soft above a public humiliation. Her live stream had crossed 20,000 viewers. A comment flashed by. Ask why they did not question anyone else. Lily swallowed and spoke before courage could leave her. Captain? Pierce turned. Mom, please remain seated. I am seated, Lily said, voice thin but steady. I just want to know why he has to leave if his ticket is valid. Rachel snapped toward her. Because he is refusing crew instructions. Lily looked at Ethan, then back at Rachel. He refused to give up a seat that belongs to him. A murmur moved through the cabin. Small, uneasy, human. The older woman in pearls lowered her phone and looked at her husband. He avoided her eyes. A retired school principal. She had spent 40 years teaching children to admit mistakes early, before they became character. Now she sat in silence, ashamed of how quickly she had believed the uniform over the man. The businessman in seat 1C sighed loudly. This is getting out of hand, he said. I paid a premium fare to avoid drama. Ethan turned slightly. So did I. The man opened his mouth, then closed it. Rachel's tablet chimed. She glanced down. Her thumb moved too quickly across the screen. Passenger incident report. Non-compliance. Suspected document issue. Potential cabin disruption. Each phrase made the story sound safer for her. None of them made it true. Ethan watched her type. Be careful with that report, he said. Rachel looked up. Excuse me? Words written in panic can last longer than the panic. The sentence hit Captain Pierce harder than he expected. He had signed reports like that. Clean language. Official tone. Events flattened into procedure. He wondered, for one brief second, how many people had been reduced that way. Then the aircraft door opened. 2 airport security officers stepped in. Megan Walsh came first. 41, compact, alert, with tired eyes that had seen too many terminal arguments. Behind her was Brian Cooper, broad-shouldered, younger, eager to look certain. Rachel moved toward them immediately. Officers, thank God, he has been refusing to deplane. Megan held up a hand. Slow down. Who is the passenger? Rachel pointed him. C2A. Brian looked at Ethan and shifted his stance. One hand moved near his belt, not touching anything, but close enough for everyone to notice. Ethan noticed. So did Megan. She shot Brian a warning glance. Sir, Megan said, professional but not unkind, I'm Officer Walsh with airport security. Can you tell me what happened? Before Ethan could answer, Rachel cut in. He has a questionable ticket and became confrontational when asked to verify his seat. Lily spoke from behind her phone. That is not what happened. Rachel spun around. Mom, stop interfering. She is not interfering, Ethan said. She is witnessing. That word settled over the cabin. Witnessing, not gossiping, not causing trouble. Witnessing. Megan looked from Lily to Ethan, then to Captain Pierce. Captain, have you verified his boarding pass? Pierce hesitated. The hesitation answered more than words. Yes, he said finally. It appears valid. Megan's brow tightened. Appears? It is valid, Ethan said. Brian stepped forward. Sir, the crew wants you off the aircraft. That is enough. Megan turned sharply. Brian. But the damage was done. Ethan slowly reached into his briefcase. Brian stiffened. Keep your hands where I can see them. Ethan froze, his eyes lifted, calm but colder now. I am reaching for documentation, he said. Do not move, Brian warned. The cabin stopped breathing. Rachel's face went pale. Captain Pierce felt sweat gather under his collar. Ethan withdrew his hand empty and placed both palms on the armrests. Then his phone buzzed again. This time it did not stop. Once, twice, 3 times. On the screen a name appeared, Liberty Air Executive Office. Megan saw it, Captain Pierce saw it. Rachel saw it too. And for the first time since this began, she looked afraid for a reason that had nothing to do with safety. Ethan let the phone ring one more time before he picked it up. He did not rush. He did not look pleased. He simply lifted the phone, placed it to his ear, and said, Brooks. The cabin listened. Even the engines seemed quieter. Rachel stood so still that her tablet dimmed in her hand. Captain Pierce watched Ethan's face, searching for fear, anger, anything he could understand. But Ethan only listened. Yes, Ethan said. I'm still on board. A pause. No, do not intervene yet. Rachel blinked. Megan Walsh's eyes narrowed, not with suspicion now, but calculation. She had worked airport security long enough to know when a situation had another layer. Most passengers threatened lawyers. They name-dropped. They raised their voices. Ethan did none of that. That made him more serious. He ended the call and placed the phone on the tray table. Captain Pierce cleared his throat. Who was that? Ethan looked up. Someone trying to prevent this from becoming worse than it already is. Brian Cooper shifted his weight. Sir, that sounds like a threat. No, Ethan said. It is a warning. Rachel found her voice. You see? This is what I mean. He keeps making statements like that. Lily Carter turned her phone toward Rachel just enough to keep both faces in frame. Her live stream had reached 35,000 viewers. She could barely process it. Her mother was still in a hospital bed in Mesa, waiting for her daughter to arrive. Yet Lily felt rooted to the floor by something older and larger than travel plans. Some moments ask a person to choose. Comfort or truth. Silence or witness. She chose witness. Could you please repeat what he said that was threatening? Lily asked. Rachel snapped, I don't answer to passengers. No, Ethan said quietly. But you may have to answer to the record. Captain Pierce inhaled sharply. He had heard enough legal language in mandatory training to recognize danger when it walked in wearing calm shoes. Megan stepped closer to the row. Mr. Brooks, I'm going to ask this plainly. Are you willing to step off the aircraft so we can verify the situation at the gate? No. The answer landed clean. Brian's eyes hardened. That is refusing a lawful instruction. Ethan looked at him. Officer Cooper, I am in my assigned seat on a commercial flight with valid documents. I have not raised my voice, threatened anyone, blocked an aisle, or interfered with crew duties. I am not stepping off this plane because someone feels uncomfortable with the idea of me sitting here. The words struck the cabin in pieces. Valid documents. Assigned seat. Someone feels uncomfortable. The older woman in pearls lowered her head. Her husband whispered, "Don't get involved, Marjorie." She looked at him, eyes wet with shame and courage. "We already are," she whispered back. We watched. Rachel heard them and looked away. Captain Pierce's radio crackled again. "Captain Pierce, operations is requesting immediate status. Social media traffic is increasing. Please advise." The captain froze. Social media traffic, not passenger issue, not seat dispute. Traffic. His stomach tightened. He pressed the radio. "Operations, passenger removal is in progress." Ethan's phone buzzed again. This time, a text flashed across the screen. "Live feed has reached corporate communications." Captain Pierce saw enough to feel his pulse thud in his neck. Megan saw it too. "Captain," she said quietly, "before we put hands on anybody, I need a clearer basis." Brian turned. "The crew requested removal, and I'm asking why," Megan said. Her voice was firm now, not loud. Firm. For the first time, Rachel looked betrayed. "Are you questioning us?" "I'm doing my job," Megan said. "And part of my job is making sure we don't escalate without cause." Those words changed something. Small, but real. A thin line of humanity appeared in the aisle. Ethan looked at Megan, and for a second the hardness in his eyes softened. Not relief, not trust, but recognition. Rachel stepped forward, desperate to regain control. "He has been difficult since boarding," she said. Lily spoke again. "He was reading when you came over." Rachel's voice rose. "You don't know what happened before you started filming." A man in row 4 lifted his hand. "I was here." He was sitting quietly. Another voice from coach called out, "Same here." The cabin shifted again. A few people who had been hiding behind silence began to sit taller. Not heroes, just people realizing decency sometimes starts with one sentence. Rachel's face turned pale. Captain Pierce felt the scene slipping beyond procedure, beyond command, beyond the tidy boxes he had relied on for years. Then his phone rang. Not the radio, his personal phone. He looked down. Liberty Air Operations Center. Urgent. The screen glowed in his palm like a verdict. Ethan leaned back slightly. "You should answer that, Captain." Pierce stared at him. The phones were still recording. Megan waited. Brian stopped moving. Rachel stopped breathing. The captain accepted the call. "This is Pierce." A voice on the other end spoke fast enough that everyone saw the blood leave his face. He turned away, but there was nowhere to hide in first class. When he looked back at Ethan Brooks, his expression had changed completely. Authority was still there, but fear had entered the cockpit. Captain Pierce lowered the phone slowly, as if it had become heavier in his hand. No one spoke. Rachel searched his face for support, for the familiar look that said he had taken command, and everything would be handled. But that look was gone. In its place was something brittle, something exposed. "Captain?" she whispered. Pierce did not answer her. His eyes stayed on Ethan. "Mr. Brooks," he said, and the name came out carefully now. "Operations is asking for confirmation of your identity." Ethan's expression did not change. "They have it." Pierce swallowed. "They said corporate communications is monitoring a live video." Lily's phone shook in her hands. Her stream had passed 50,000 viewers. The comments were no longer just strangers shouting into the internet. Local reporters had entered. Aviation attorneys, former airline workers, people who knew the language of policies and liability. One comment kept repeating, "This is not about a seat anymore." Megan Walsh stepped into the aisle, putting herself slightly between Brian and Ethan. It was not dramatic. It was professional, but everyone noticed. "Captain, I recommend we pause any removal until your operations team gives clear direction." Brian frowned. "We already have a request from the crew." Megan looked at him. "And we also have a verified boarding pass, multiple witnesses, and a live audience large enough to turn one wrong move into a national incident." Brian's ears reddened. He looked away. Rachel's grip tightened on the tablet. "So now we just let passengers refuse instructions because people are filming?" "No," Megan's end said. "We ask better questions because people are filming what we actually do." That hit harder than she intended. Rachel blinked once, fast. Ethan looked at Megan, then at Rachel. Recording did not create the problem. It revealed it. The sentence moved through the cabin like a low current. Captain Pierce's radio cracked again. Captain Pierce, this is operations. Executive leadership has joined the incident review. Do not proceed with physical removal until further instruction. Executive leadership. The words landed in the aisle. Rachel's mouth parted. Executive leadership? Pierce pressed the radio button. His voice was controlled, but thin. Copy, standing by. The businessman in seat 1C had stopped complaining. His phone rested forgotten in his lap. The older woman in pearls turned fully toward Ethan now, no longer hiding her attention. Her husband reached for her hand. She did not take it. Lily whispered to her viewers without meaning to. They told him to stop. Her voice broke at the end. Ethan heard it. He glanced back at her. For a moment, the storm paused. He saw a young woman trying to be brave, though she had never asked to carry this much attention. He gave her the smallest nod. Not thanks for making him visible. Thanks for not looking away. Then he reached for his briefcase again. Brian stiffened, but Megan raised her hand before he could speak. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "please tell us what you are retrieving." "My identification." Rachel let out a sharp breath. "You already showed your license. This one may help you listen." He opened the briefcase slowly. The leather creaked. Inside were folders, a tablet, a pair of reading glasses, and a black card holder. He took out one card and held it between two fingers. No flourish, no smile, just a card. He handed it to Megan. She read it once, then again. Her face changed first. Not panic, recognition. She passed the card to Brian. His posture collapsed by an inch like air leaving a tire. "What is it?" Rachel demanded. Brian did not answer. Captain Pierce stepped closer and took the card from him. The cabin watched. The captain read, "Ethan Brooks, Chairman, Liberty Air Holdings." The silence was total. Not quiet, total. Even Rachel stopped breathing. Pierce stared at the card as if it had opened a door beneath his feet. "Chairman," he said, barely above a whisper. Ethan remained seated. "Yes." Rachel shook her head. "No, that cannot be right." Ethan turned to her. "Why not?" It was a simple question. It destroyed every defense she had left. Rachel looked at his suit, his watch, his calm, his boarding pass, his name. None of it had ever been hidden. She had seen only what her assumptions allowed her to see. Captain Pierce's phone rang again. He flinched before answering. "This is Pierce." The voice on the speaker was loud enough for the front rows to hear. "Captain Pierce, this is Margaret Ellis, Chief Operating Officer of Liberty Air. You are speaking in the presence of Ethan Brooks, Chairman of our board. Under no circumstances is he to be removed from that aircraft." Pierce closed his eyes. "Yes, Mom." Margaret's voice sharpened. "I also want the crew member who challenged his seat assignment removed from passenger interaction immediately. Do you understand?" Rachel's face drained white. Pierce looked at her then, and for the first time all morning, he saw not his trusted lead attendant, not his colleague, but a woman standing in the wreckage of her own words. "Yes, Mom," he said again. Ethan raised one hand slightly. "Margaret." The line went quiet. "I do not want anyone removed yet," he said. "Not before they understand what happened." Rachel looked at him, confused by the mercy in the middle of ruin. Ethan's voice softened, but only slightly. "A company cannot heal from what it refuses to face." Rachel stared at Ethan as if mercy were another accusation. She had expected anger. She had expected punishment. She had even expected him to demand her badge right there in front of everyone. That would have been easier to understand. But this was worse. He wanted her to see herself. Captain Pierce kept the phone to his ear, waiting for Margaret Ellis to respond. The chief operating officer was silent for a beat too long. Then her voice came through, low and controlled. "Mr. Brooks, with respect, legal is advising containment." Ethan's eyes did not leave Rachel. "Containment is how we got here." Rachel flinched. The word hit the cabin with quiet force. For years, companies had contained complaints, filed them, settled them, rewarded them, sent apology emails with soft language and discount vouchers. People were hurt, then processed. Ethan knew that machine better than anyone. He had helped build parts of it. That was the burden under his calm. Margaret spoke again. "What are you asking us to do?" "Stay on the line," Ethan said. "Listen." He reached for his tablet again slowly enough that Megan Walsh did not have to warn anyone. His fingers moved across the screen. A document opened. Not flashy, not secret. A simple internal report with a Liberty Air header. Rachel saw the title and went still. Passenger Dignity Review. Captain Pierce saw it too. Ethan turned the tablet so only the front rows could see, but Lily's camera caught enough. In the last 2 quarters, Ethan said, Liberty Air received 43 formal complaints involving premium cabin passengers being questioned more aggressively than others. Most involved Black passengers, Latino passengers, older passengers traveling alone, veterans with disabilities, people who did not match someone's picture of first class. The cabin grew heavy. This was no longer about Ethan Brooks. That was the moment everyone felt it. The older woman in pearls pressed her hand to her mouth. The businessman in seat 1C looked down, his face slack with discomfort. Brian Cooper shifted backward, suddenly aware that his own body language had become part of the evidence. Rachel whispered, I did not know that. Ethan looked at her. Would it have changed how you treated me? She opened her mouth. No answer came. That silence was honest, and because it was honest, it hurt. Captain Pierce rubbed a hand over his face. Mr. Brooks, I need to say something. Ethan waited. Pierce's voice dropped. I believed my crew because that is what captains are trained to do. Megan looked at him. Captain, belief is not the same as verification. Pierce nodded once stiffly. He deserved that. He knew it. Rachel's eyes filled, but she fought it. Not because she was strong, because she had spent too many years believing tears could make her the victim of consequences. I was trying to protect the flight, she said. Ethan leaned forward slightly. From what? Rachel's lips trembled. From fraud, she wanted to say. From conflict. From delay. But all those answers sounded thin now. She looked at Ethan's boarding pass on the tray table, his license, his business card, his steady hands. Then she heard her own words again. Does he seem like he belongs here? Her face collapsed. I made an assumption, she said. The cabin held its breath. Ethan did not rescue her from the truth. He let it stand. Rachel wiped one tear quickly, almost angrily. I made an assumption about you before I had evidence. Lily's live stream crossed 70,000 viewers. No one cheered, not in the cabin. This did not feel like victory. It felt like a wound being cleaned in public, necessary, painful. Captain Pierce turned toward Ethan. I also acted on that assumption. Ethan's gaze shifted to him. Pierce swallowed. I saw a calm passenger with valid documents, and I still escalated because I trusted fear over facts. Megan's expression softened, just a little. Brian looked at the floor. Margaret's voice came from the phone, smaller now through the speaker. Mr. Brooks, the executive team is hearing this. Good, Ethan said. Rachel looked startled. They are still listening? Yes, Ethan said. So is everyone else. The words were not cruel. They were final. Outside, a fuel truck rolled slowly past the window. Inside, the cabin lights hummed. The plane had not moved, but something had shifted farther than miles. Ethan tapped the tablet and opened another page. This flight was not random, he said. Rachel's head lifted. Pierce froze. Ethan continued, his voice steady but edged with grief. For months, I have been reviewing complaints that never reached the board with their full weight. People said they were humiliated, questioned, moved, watched, dismissed. Some were offered miles. Some were told they misunderstood. He looked down for the first time. My father was told he misunderstood things his whole life. The cabin quieted in a different way now, softer, human. He was a postal worker in Savannah, Ethan said. He wore the same uniform for 30 years. He taught me that dignity is not something a company gives you. It is something no one has the right to take. Rachel covered her mouth. Ethan looked back up. So I bought a ticket. I sat in a seat. And I waited to see whether our training meant anything when nobody knew who I was. Captain Pierce's voice was barely audible, and we failed. Ethan nodded once. Yes, the word was not shouted. It did not need to be. It landed harder than any punishment. The word failed did not echo, but everyone felt it stay in the cabin. Rachel sank into the edge of an empty aisle seat as if her legs had forgotten their purpose. Her tablet rested against her knees, still open to the incident report she had started. The words on the screen looked different now. Non-compliance, disruption, questionable document. She had written them like facts. Now they looked like weapons. Captain Pierce stood beside the row, staring at the floor between his shoes. He could hear his own breathing inside his ears. For years, he had believed he was a fair man, a steady man, the kind of captain passengers trusted because he did not hesitate. But hesitation, he was beginning to understand, might have saved him. Megan Walsh spoke first. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. "Mr. Brooks, what do you want us to do now?" Ethan looked toward the open aircraft door, then down the aisle at the passengers. Some still filmed. Some had lowered their phones. A few looked ashamed to have wanted entertainment and found a mirror instead. "I want this flight completed," Ethan said. "No one came here to become part of a public lesson, but that is where we are." Margaret Ellis was still on speaker. "Ethan, legal is advising we remove the involved crew member from duty before departure." Rachel closed her eyes. Pierce looked at her, then at Ethan. Ethan said, "Not yet." Rachel opened her eyes, confused again. "You should not protect me," she whispered. "I am not protecting you," Ethan said. "I am protecting the truth from being buried too quickly." That quiet sentence shook her more than any shouting could have. Brian Cooper cleared his throat. His voice had lost its edge. "Mr. Brooks, I owe you an apology. I moved too fast." Ethan turned to him. "You did." Brian swallowed hard. "I saw a passenger refusing crew direction. I thought I knew what I was walking into." Megan looked at him, waiting. Brian forced himself to continue. "I did not ask enough questions." Ethan nodded once. "That is where harm often begins." Lily's phone was still streaming. Her arm ached. Her eyes burned. A message came from her brother asking why she was online everywhere. Another from a local reporter. Another from her mother. "Are you safe?" Lily typed with one thumb. "Yes. I think I am where I'm supposed to be." The older woman in pearls finally stood, using the seat back to steady herself. "Mr. Brooks," she said. Her husband touched her wrist. "Marjorie," she gently pulled away. "No. I need to say this." Ethan looked back at her. Marjorie's voice trembled, but she did not sit down. "When this started, I assumed the crew must know something I did not. I have spent my life telling my grandchildren to be fair, to listen, to look people in the eye. And I did not do that for you." Rachel looked at the woman, tears slipping now despite her effort to hold them back. Marjorie continued. "I am sorry." The cabin went still. Ethan's face softened in a way that made him look tired rather than powerful. "Thank you," he said. "That matters. It did matter. Not because an apology could undo the humiliation. It could not. But because public harm needed public honesty. Someone had to show the others how to step out of silence without turning themselves into the center of the wound. Captain Pierce understood that, slowly, painfully. He straightened. "Mr. Brooks," he said, voice rough. "I need to apologize as well, not as a legal statement, not as a company representative. As a man." Ethan waited. Pierce looked toward the phones, then back at Ethan. He wanted to hide from the cameras. He also knew hiding was part of what had made him small. "I saw your documents. I saw your conduct. And I still treated you like a problem because my crew had already named you one. That was wrong." Rachel covered her face. Pierce went on. "I have flown long enough to know that authority can become dangerous when it stops asking questions. Today, mine did." The words seemed to age him as he spoke them. Ethan held his gaze. "Captain, do you understand why this cannot end with apology alone?" Pierce nodded. "Yes. Say why." Pierce's throat moved. His pride fought him, then it lost. "Because if there are no changes, this becomes just another bad moment people talk about for a week. And then someone else gets treated the same way." Ethan leaned back. For the first time all morning, he looked deeply sad. "That is exactly right." Margaret Ellis spoke again from the phone. Her tone had changed, less defensive, more human. "Mr. Brooks, the board can convene an emergency session within the hour." "No," Ethan said. "The board can listen first, then it can act." Rachel wiped her face and looked up. "What happens to me?" No one moved. It was the question she had feared most. Ethan studied her. He could have ended her career with one sentence. Everyone knew it. She knew it most of all. "What happens next," he said, "depends on whether you are more afraid of losing your job or more willing to understand the harm you caused." Rachel's lips parted. The engines hummed beneath them. Outside, the morning kept moving. Inside, every camera stayed fixed on her answer. Rachel looked down at her hands. They were shaking. She had poured coffee in rough air without spilling a drop. She had calmed angry passengers during weather delays. She had smiled through missed connections, medical scares, and holiday crowds. But now, with every eye on her, she could not steady her own fingers. "I don't know how to answer that," she said. Ethan did not look away. "Start with the truth." Rachel took a breath. It caught halfway. "The truth is," she stopped. The cabin waited. "The truth is, I thought I knew what first class looked like." The words seemed to drain the strength from her body. Captain Pierce closed his eyes. Brian stared at the floor. Megan stood still, arms relaxed now, her face unreadable but attentive. Rachel kept going because stopping would be worse. "I have served people in this cabin for 12 years. I learned names, preferences, who liked club soda, who wanted the Wall Street Journal, who expected to be greeted before they sat down." Her voice cracked, and somewhere along the way, I started thinking familiarity meant belonging. Ethan's face remained calm, but his eyes sharpened. Rachel turned toward him fully. "When I saw you, I did not ask who you were. I decided who you were." A low sound moved through the cabin. Not outrage, not approval, recognition. The older woman, Marjorie, wiped her eyes. Lily's arm trembled again, but she kept filming. Her viewers had passed 90,000. People were sharing the stream across platforms, adding their own stories in the comments. Men and women who had been questioned at gates, asked to prove upgrades, followed in lounges, ignored at counters. The cabin had become a doorway into something much larger. Margaret Ellis spoke from the phone, her voice softer now. "Rachel, this is being heard by company leadership." Rachel gave a broken laugh. "I know." She looked at Ethan again. "I am sorry, Mr. Brooks, not because you are chairman. I am sorry because you should not have had to be powerful to be believed." That sentence changed the cabin. It cut deeper than the title, deeper than the business card, deeper than the live stream numbers. Ethan looked down for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower. "That is the first true thing you have said to me today." Rachel pressed both hands over her mouth. Captain Pierce stepped beside her, but did not touch her. He seemed to understand that comfort given too early can become escape. "Rachel," he said quietly, "we need to finish this flight." She nodded, but Ethan raised one hand. "Before that, Captain, we need one more thing." Pierce stiffened. "Yes, sir. Do not call me sir because you know my title now. Call me Mr. Brooks because that is what my boarding pass said from the beginning." Pierce absorbed the correction. "Yes, Mr. Brooks." Ethan turned slightly, so his voice carried through the cabin. "To everyone on this aircraft, I regret the delay. I regret that your morning became part of something painful. But I will not apologize for refusing to disappear quietly." No one interrupted him. "Every person who buys a ticket deserves the same basic dignity, not special treatment, not suspicion first, dignity first." The words moved slowly, clearly, like he wanted them to be remembered by people who might need them later. Megan lowered her eyes for 1 second. Brian swallowed. Then Ethan looked to Lily. "Young lady, what is your name?" "Lily Carter," she said. "Miss Carter, you did not create this incident, but you documented it. That matters. Just remember, recording a person's pain is a responsibility, not entertainment." Lily's face flushed. She nodded quickly. "Yes, Mr. Brooks." That lesson reached beyond her phone. She understood it at once. The camera could protect. It could also consume. The difference was respect. Captain Pierce's radio sounded again. "Captain, operations needs a departure decision." Pierce looked at Ethan. Ethan nodded once. "Complete the flight." Pierce pressed the radio. "Operations, this is Pierce. We are preparing for departure. Passenger remains in seat 2A. Security is stepping off." Megan looked at Ethan. "Mr. Brooks, I will file my report with exactly what I observed." "Thank you, Officer Walsh." Brian hesitated. "And I will correct mine." Ethan nodded. "Good." Megan and Brian stepped off the aircraft. The door remained open for a moment longer, letting in the cold terminal air. Rachel stood in the aisle, pale and hollowed out. Margaret's voice came from the phone. "Ethan, the board is ready when you are." Ethan picked up the phone. "Not yet. Let the plane leave. Let the people reach Phoenix. Then we begin." He ended the call. Rachel looked at him, confused again by the restraint. "Why wait?" Ethan settled back into seat 2A and fastened his belt. Because justice should interrupt harm, he said. Not every innocent person's life around it. The aircraft door closed with a heavy seal. This time, the sound felt different. Not like an ending. Like the locking of evidence before the real trial began. The plane pushed back from the gate 37 minutes late. No one complained now. The first-class cabin had changed shape without moving. The same leather seats, the same overhead lights, the same soft hum of air through the vents. But the people inside were different, quieter, more careful with their eyes. As if every person had suddenly remembered that comfort bought with a ticket did not excuse cruelty witnessed in silence. Rachel moved through the cabin with mechanical precision, checking latches, seat backs, and belts. Her hands still shook when she passed Ethan. He noticed. He did not soften the moment for her. Some lessons had to be carried. Captain Pierce made the safety announcement himself. His voice came over the speakers steady at first, then rough around the edges. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We will be departing shortly for Phoenix. I also want to acknowledge the delay and the distress caused in the cabin this morning. We will continue this flight with professionalism and respect for every passenger on board. He paused. Rachel looked up. Ethan looked toward the cockpit door. The captain continued. That respect should have been clear from the beginning. The intercom clicked off. A silence followed, then the low growl of the engines rising as the aircraft taxied away. Lily Carter lowered her phone for the first time in nearly an hour. Her stream was still running, but she turned the camera toward her lap. Her face felt hot. Her messages were endless now. Reporters, friends, strangers thanking her, strangers attacking her, strangers making Ethan into a symbol before the man had even reached cruising altitude. She looked at him across the aisle. He was not celebrating. He looked tired. That surprised her. Power, she realized, did not make humiliation painless. It only gave him a way to answer it. The aircraft lifted into the pale morning sky. Wheels folded beneath them. The city fell away. The tension did not. When the seatbelt sign turned off, Rachel did not begin service right away. She stood behind the forward curtain, gripping the counter in the galley. Her reflection stared back at her from the metal coffee pot. Red eyes, tight mouth, uniform perfect, face broken. A junior attendant named Nora Hayes stepped beside her. Nora was 29, new to first class, careful in the way younger employees are careful around senior ones. She had seen everything from the forward galley. She had said nothing. That silence now sat between them. Rachel whispered, "Say it." Nora looked down. "Say what?" "That I was awful." Nora's throat tightened. "You were wrong." Rachel closed her eyes. Oddly, the gentler word hurt more. "Why didn't you stop me?" Nora's face flushed. She looked toward the curtain, toward the cabin, toward all the places courage had not come from. "Because I was afraid of you," she said. "And because part of me thought maybe you knew something I didn't." Rachel nodded, once, almost to herself. "That is how it spreads." Nora looked up. Rachel wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. Not just from people who say things. From people who hear them and stay quiet. For the first time that morning, Rachel sounded less like someone defending herself, and more like someone beginning to understand the size of the harm. In seat 2A, Ethan opened his laptop. A secure video window blinked on the screen. Margaret Ellis appeared, joined by 2 board members, the General Counsel and Liberty Air's head of Human Resources. All of them looked strained. All of them looked awake. "Ethan," Margaret said, "we need a statement ready before landing." "We need more than a statement," he replied. The General Counsel leaned forward. "We should be careful with admissions of liability." Ethan's eyes sharpened. Careful language is not the same as honest leadership. The lawyer stopped speaking. Ethan continued. "Draft the public statement. Plain English. No unfortunate incident. No misunderstanding. Say a passenger was wrongfully questioned after presenting valid documentation. Say our crew failed to meet our standards. Say we are reviewing whether those standards are strong enough." Human Resources asked, "And Rachel Monroe?" Ethan looked toward the galley curtain. "She remains employed until due process is complete, but she is removed from lead duties immediately after landing. Captain Pierce as well. Both will be interviewed." Both will have union representation. We do this correctly. Margaret studied him. And after that? Ethan leaned back. After that, we build something that should have existed already. He shared his screen. The file title appeared. Brooks Protocol. Passenger Dignity and Bias Interruption Program. The executives went silent. Ethan's voice dropped. This was drafted before today. I hoped we would not need an incident this public to force action. The head of Human Resources looked pale. You expected something to happen? Ethan glanced toward the window. Clouds passed beneath the wing like torn cotton. I expected the truth, he said. I just did not know whose face it would wear. By the time Flight 2847 touched down in Phoenix, the story had already landed ahead of them. Through the windows, passengers could see news vans parked beyond the glass, airport officials near the jet bridge, and Liberty Air executives waiting with faces tight enough to crack. No flashing spectacle. No shouting crowd on the tarmac. Just the quiet weight of consequence. Rachel stood near the forward door, her hands folded in front of her. Captain Pierce remained in the cockpit for a moment after shutdown, staring at the darkened instruments. He had landed thousands of flights, but this was the first one that made him feel like the ground beneath him had changed. When the door opened, Margaret Ellis stepped aboard. She did not look at Rachel first. She walked directly to Ethan. Mr. Brooks, she said, the board is assembled. Legal is ready. Media is waiting. Ethan rose from seat 2A slowly. He adjusted his jacket, picked up his briefcase, and looked once around the cabin. This begins with the passengers, he said. Margaret paused. Ethan turned to everyone watching him. What happened here was not your fault. But what happens after this belongs to all of us. Lily Carter lowered her phone. For the first time, she was not filming. She was listening. Ethan continued, voice calm but carrying to the last row. If you recorded today, preserve the full video. Do not cut it into entertainment. Do not turn pain into a game. Let the truth remain whole. Several passengers nodded. Then he looked at Rachel. She could barely meet his eyes. Ms. Monroe, he said, you will be removed from passenger duty pending investigation. You will have representation. You will have due process. But you will also have to face what you said and why you said it. Rachel nodded. Tears slipped down her face. Yes, Mr. Brooks. Captain Pierce stepped out of the cockpit, hat in hand. His shoulders looked smaller. Ethan turned to him. Captain Pierce, the same applies to you. I understand, Pierce said. His voice broke on the second word. Ethan studied him for a long second. Understanding is not the end. It is the beginning. The sentence stayed with him. Hours later, Liberty Air released a statement unlike the usual polished apologies. It named the failure plainly. It confirmed Ethan Brooks had been wrongfully challenged despite valid identification and a confirmed first-class ticket. It announced the Brooks Protocol, an independent review of passenger removals, mandatory bias interruption training, and a new rule requiring documented cause before escalating a seated, ticketed passenger. No vouchers. No soft language, no hiding behind misunderstanding. By sunset, Rachel Monroe and Alan Pierce had both given formal statements, not to save face, not fully, but enough to begin telling the truth. Rachel admitted she had confused appearance with belonging. Pierce admitted he had trusted authority over evidence. Their careers were not erased in one dramatic moment. Real life is not that clean. There were investigations, union meetings, hearings, and consequences. Rachel never returned to lead first-class service. Pierce was placed on administrative leave and later reassigned to training after completing a long review. But the deeper change came slowly. 3 months later, Lily visited her mother again. This time at the airport, she saw a gate agent kneel beside an elderly black veteran who was confused about his boarding group. The agent did not rush him, did not shame him, just helped. Lily thought of seat 2A. She thought of Ethan's words. Dignity first. 6 months later, Liberty Air reported fewer escalations and more resolved complaints. Not perfect, not healed overnight, but better, and better mattered. Ethan Brooks never called himself a hero. When asked about the video, he simply said, "Power is only useful when it protects people who do not have it in the room." That was the real ending, not a ruined flight, not a viral clip, A man kept his seat. A company faced its mirror. A few people learned that respect is not a luxury cabin privilege. It is the minimum every human being is owed. And somewhere, on another flight, someone watching unfairness unfold may remember this story and choose not to stay silent. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes dignity still matters. And tell me in the comments what you would have done if you had been sitting in that cabin.